Video games are sometimes about being a power fantasy, and in that, when a game does unrealistic stuff, it's kind of expected and okay. But what about when it's not so good? Hi folks, it's Falcon, and today on gameranx, 10 unrealistic game mechanics that actually suck. Starting off with number 10, rare random drops. If you've ever played an RPG or an MMO, then you've experienced this scenario. Someone in town tells you to get 10 wolf spleens or cow pies or, I don't know, like elixirs. So you go out and kill a wolf or a cow or a potion seller. Although be careful with that last one, they can be pretty shifty. Also be careful with the elixir, it might be too strong. Anyway, you kill that stuff and you loot it, and hey, no spleen, no cow pie, no elixir. In a rational world, that's exactly what would happen, right? Hey, you kill a wolf and you get all the internal organs. You kill a cow and I guess it poops its final time. That's not how it works in video games, though. I mean, this sort of thing makes a little more sense when you're talking about equipment that like an enemy might or might not have on them, but for the most part, a lot of the randomness of loot drops makes little to no sense. It's 100% just a gameplay contrivance to keep you playing. Like the Monster Hunter series, fantastic series, but it can be pretty lousy with the rare carves and loot that you get from monsters, which by all accounts should always drop after killing and carving up a beast. Like, oh, I don't know, kill a monster, maybe you should have the ability to walk away with a monster pelt or whatever, you know? But it appears randomly. Like, why is it so hard to get some dragon claws? I keep killing these dragons, and for some reason, I don't get any of their claws, despite every one of them having claws. Like, that's one of the more egregious examples, but pretty much every RPG has this mechanic to some degree or another, and no matter how you slice it, it doesn't make sense. It's unrealistic, and it sucks. Simple as that. Like, those games are long as hell anyways. Why not just, not make me fight 6 battles to take the wing of a pigeon or something? And number 9, rubber banding. Whoa! This is just infuriating. So, if you've played a lot of racing games, you know exactly what rubber banding is, and you hate it. It's basically to keep the race more interesting. Like, rubber banding is when an AI car gets unnatural speed when you have a dominating lead in a race. In theory, it's supposed to work the other way as well, like cars will slow down so you can catch up and stay in the race. But that part's okay. You're the player, and I understand that kind of, well, there's no point in playing this if I'm going to lose. But like, when you're really far ahead, that feels great. Just let me keep this, And in certain games, it just doesn't matter how good a driver you are. You can be racing perfectly, hitting every turn at the exact right angle, carefully maximizing your speed for most of the race to dominate your opponents, and last minute, some otherwise useless AI racer becomes Dale Earnhardt and Batman combined. When it feels like you don't have any control whether you win or lose a race, that's when the rubber banding just gets out of control. Like, certain Mario Kart games were really bad about this, especially when you combine it with the powerful weapons that racers in the back position get. It's not uncommon for the first place racer to just be bombarded with blue shells, lightning, and just about everything else the final stretch of the race. Some games barely even try to hide the rubber banding. Some of them will literally just teleport an AI racer up a few positions just to make things more of a challenge. When it comes to racing games, like, a fair challenge is really what you want, right? It's just more satisfying when you win a race when the AI plays by the rules rather than when it cheats the minute you're not looking. Yes, rubber banding, when used well, can keep races interesting while still rewarding skilled players, but developers often go overboard with it, and it can be a really disheartening and miserable mechanic. And number 8, collision damage. Seriously, someone explain to me how touching a Goomba can hurt Mario. They don't bite him, they don't spray Goomba juice on him, and when they touch each other, nobody dies. So what is it? Like, the amount of damage these guys deal to Mario is equal to that of a spinning turtle shell, or a fireball, or a spike trap, or any, real threat to Mario. Doesn't make any sense, but that's collision damage for you, right? In games with collision damage, anytime you touch an enemy, no matter how unthreatening they look, even if they're just a walking mushroom, you take damage. Makes sense that a cactus might do this, right? But most of the time, it's not a cactus. it's like a walking mushroom, you know? Some of the most infamous enemies in old games are like birds. Not ninjas, not undead warriors, or armor knights, or dragons. Birds. They just kind of fly around and would tickle you at best in real life. They're doing the same thing they did in the game, but they're deadly killers in the game. Touching them doesn't just hurt you, send you flying back. Look at the damage some characters take in old games. You think a stiff breeze would be enough to take some of these chumps down. When games transition into 3D, they mostly dumped this mechanic, but that doesn't mean it still doesn't pop up from time to time. It's one of those old school mechanics. It's been around so long, we just kind of accept it, even though like it's more annoying than fun pretty much all the time. And number 7 is time limits. When it comes to time limits in video games, there's some realistic examples to pick from, like in a military game where you're, trying to do a mission that's time sensitive, or in a Metroid game where the base is exploding. Like, those things make sense, but elsewhere, it's just a gameplay contrivance. It's arbitrary. In those specific examples, it makes sense, but why can't I spend more than 10 minutes in a Sonic zone? I don't get that. And that's what we're talking about here. Like, the time limits just don't make any sense within the context of the game. A lot of platformers have time limits for their stages, and if you don't get to the end before time runs out, you do the death pose and fall into oblivion downward. Pretty much no in-game explanation. Like, Mario doesn't reach the end of the level, he just dies and does that thing. 1 second he's alive, the next he is dead. I mentioned Sonic, it's true there. Plenty of platformer protagonists. They just live by this honor code that I guess it's only honorable if you don't, get all the way to the right in a certain amount of time. It doesn't serve a purpose anymore. It's just so old school. It's something people just think is there. It has its roots in arcade games because, like, they want you to put more money in the arcade game. And I guess it makes sense there. You're not exactly playing in an arcade for endless immersion, They want to cycle people through the game. The longer you're on the game, the less money you're putting in it. But, like, that doesn't exist anymore. And it wasn't realistic then, and it wasn't fun. And it's not like we liked giving up the arcade cabinet, but it makes even less sense now. And number 6 is rail shooting segments where you can die really easy. The concept of getting on a mounted gun and blasting away at a swarm of enemies isn't unrealistic on its own, but a lot of games, these are not handled in a way that's realistic. Depending on the game, these sequences can be super long, really simplistic, and even boring. If that's the worst a rail shooting segment can get, maybe we wouldn't put it on this list, but they suddenly start getting really hard sometimes, and that's where the real fakeness of these things really starts to stand out. Just look at your standard on-rail shooting sequence. Usually, you're on a machine gun emplacement with zero cover. You're standing out in the open like a sitting duck. You know what I'm saying. When you're just shooting fish in a barrel, it's not that noticeable. When the enemy starts shooting you to pieces, but your dude is just standing there like a dumbass, that's when they start to suck, Is it that hard for your guy to just get off the gun for a second and, duck? Certain games do let you take cover while manning a machine gun, but most of them, I'm going to say, just have your guy standing in place, not reacting at all while they get, like, drizzled with bullets. Depending on who you ask, the whole concept of the rail shooter segment is outdated and just shouldn't be in games anymore. But I don't really mind these parts in short bursts. They can be a lot of brainless fun. They just start getting difficult or long, and then they suck. And number 5 is random encounters. Look, I love old school RPGs. I play the hell out of old school RPGs, but I also play the updated versions where I can turn the random encounters on and off as I please. Why? Because a lot of the time, I don't want to deal with it. It's not what I am at the game for. When I need to grind, yes, turn it back on, I'll do it. When I'm heading for the next part of the story, like when I'm walking from Midgard to Nibelheim, I don't need that crap in my life right now. Except for back then, you couldn't turn it off. It was just standard. Like, every time you were in an area that wasn't safe, you were a few steps away from a random encounter. And to call it annoying would be a massive, massive understatement. It was probably the number one thing keeping people from getting into role-playing games back in the day. Instead of letting you explore the world and coming up with some natural way to deal with enemies, the games just left it up to a random number generator. Chrono Trigger, was the first instance of it I ever experienced that handled enemy encounters in a way that felt like it makes sense, like they were in the map, and you could even sneak by some of them, but that wasn't how it went most of the time. And do I need to explain why it's unrealistic? Like, you're just strolling along minding your own business, and like suddenly a bunny rabbit or a frog or a strangely positioned cactus man would attack you. Like, you'd think you'd be able to see that coming and either avoid it or charge it with all of your might. But like, even when they're strong enough to take on literal gods, these random critters will still get the drop on them. Like, it's one of those things that RPGs just had to have for a while because they didn't really have another solution except for, the one that they had in Chrono Trigger in 1995. And it's pretty rare you see random battles in RPGs these days. Even like when you have them, you can shut them off, and that's really all that matters. Like, if I want to do battles, if I want to grind, I'll turn them on, and then like that's exactly what I want to do. But when you force me to walk a few steps and get in a battle and walk a few steps and get in a battle, that slows down the pace badly. It's not a gaming loop anymore. It's just annoying. And number 4 is auto-scrolling levels. Ooh. Now, I will say, before I really express how much I hate an auto-scrolling level, I will say that some people have levels of tolerance where these sorts of stages aren't always terrible. And I'm not going to say I hate every single one that's ever existed. There are actually some pretty fun ones. But when they start to get hard or annoying, they really, really suck. Especially in a lot of old platformers, there's usually a level or two where the screen's just constantly moving and you can't control it. In these stages, it's more about avoiding enemies and obstacles than moving forward. Rarely does the game give an explanation as to why. It just sort of happens. And if you're too slow or too fast, it can mean instant death. If I'm completely honest, that's actually the thing that annoyed me the most with auto-scroll levels, is they were often scrolling much slower than I wanted to go. Falcon over here, yeah, he gotta go fast. There's a reason why I'm the one that did the before you buy on Sonic Frontiers. That's how I like my platforming. But forget preferences, this just doesn't make any sense whatsoever. And look at this. You're caught between this wall and the side of the screen. Now you're dead. There wasn't anything deadly there, just the edge of the screen. Doesn't matter if you touch it anywhere else. But on an auto-scrolling level, this invisible wall of death kills you. Whatever. And number 3 is lives and game overs. I hate to break it to you, but in real life, you don't live more than one time. In the world of video games, you can die as many times as you want and restart, but for a long time, nearly every game had this weird artificial limitation of lives to stand in your way. You know the drill, there's a number on top or on the bottom of the screen. Every time you die, numbers go down. If it hits 0, you get game over. That sends you back to the start of the level, your last save, or even back to the start of the game. This entire concept's 100% just really video gamey. Doesn't make any rational sense. Why can Mega Man find pickups of his own head? I don't know. Because they're lives. Lives. Video games just have those. It's no more or less unrealistic than just being able to respawn after you die, but it's way more annoying because it doesn't make any sense anymore. Again, to go back to arcades, lives make perfect sense. They need to have a reason to alternate people through the arcade cabinet. But once again, we aren't playing games in arcades anymore. It's one of those systems that always feels like it's totally ignorable because the game showers you with lives, or just incredibly annoying because the game's really stingy with them, and there's not really any in between. Like I said, it's not the 1980s anymore, and even Sonic, with Sonic Origins, changed this, and changed it for the better with the whole coin thing, because it's ridiculous. It's ridiculous to go back to the games and be stuck with this mechanic. You should be able to shut it off on any re-release of any old platformer. And number 2, block puzzles. Hey, how many puzzles do you encounter during your day-to-day life? And no, you don't get to claim that, life's challenges are little puzzles. I mean, video game puzzles. Video game protagonists, yeah, they deal with a lot of that. And what's weird is they're usually the first person there. I guess I get it in a game like Uncharted, where the places that you're visiting hadn't been charted before. But, I'm sorry, it's weird you're the first one there generally. And they're kind of a cornerstone of game design, puzzles. And one of the most common and nonsensical are block puzzles. In a game where you come upon something that's blocking your way and it's in a grid, it's a block puzzle. Or probably is. If it's not, I'm shocked. So to get around them, you gotta push, pull, and change the orientation of the blocks so you create a passage. Or solve some kind of puzzle, like make a bird out of the blocks or something, I don't know. Few things in games generate as many questions as a block puzzle. Who made these? Why Why and how can I only push them in a specific direction that makes a grid formation? Also, why can't I pull them? How does it reset after I leave the room and come back because I failed? Why can't I just squeeze through them or climb over them? Like, a lot of the time it seems like my character could if I wanted to, but it's a no. You can't do that. Like, these can be the worst element of, like, what is an otherwise good dungeon. Like, I'm looking at you, Zelda. Block pushing can be slow and very tedious, but can also be, like, fiddly and awkward, depending on the control scheme. Obviously, it's not realistic. There's a bunch of perfect square blocks that you can only push into specific positions. That's just silly. And finally, at number 1, escort missions with instant fail states. So, most escort missions. I guess, like, it's kind of realistic, but it's also really unrealistic at the same time. The realistic part is that, like, obviously, if you have a companion and they die, like they get shot or something, that they die, like that's the end of the mission. That makes sense, but everything else does not. A lot of the times, the game throws you into an escort mission when you gotta defend some random dude who wanders around like an absolute moron, stands like in front of you, does nothing to avoid enemies, basically walks up to them and says, "Please, random monster, eat my face." Like they have the survival instincts of an 8-year-old child who has never left the house because tablets are such a big part of American life now. And I'm gonna say, I can't say for certain what I would do in a life or death situation, but it wouldn't be casually stand in the middle of a firefight. And you gotta know that the programmers know. They probably know better than anyone. So why is it like that? What's even worse is the ones where literally any mistake is instant failure. And this is really where my irritation begins to skyrocket. It's especially nonsensical when there's no reason you need to keep the person alive. You don't need them to open a door. You're basically just doing it because you're good, and then they die, you know, because you walked around the corner too early or something like that. So that's it. I walked 3 steps ahead of where I was supposed to be, so that means it's over because my guy's dead now. That makes sense. Restart the simulation! Like, by far the worst and most nonsensical ones are where, you know, they immediately kill the person you're protecting at the end of the mission. Like, just a second ago, this guy had to live, but now in the cutscene, he dies, and everything keeps going. Life continues. Why could that not have happened as I was walking through the corridor? Why? Nobody likes escort missions, and for good reason. I'm not saying there's no good ones ever. Most are not. And if they're so unrealistic anyways, like, again, the guy you're protecting doesn't realize that bullets kill you or something like that, why not just make him invincible? Yeah, that would be too easy. I understand that, but why? Realistically speaking, what changes? It's dumb. And that's all for today. Leave us a comment. Let us know what you think. If you like this video, click like. If you're not subscribed, now's a great time to do so. We upload brand new videos every day of the week. Best way to see them first is, of course, a subscription, so click subscribe. Don't forget to enable all notifications, and as always, we thank you very much for watching this video. I'm Falcon. You can follow me on Twitter at FalconTheHero, and we'll see you next time right here on gameranx.